Well, hi guys, so I took the A7R4A and the Laowa 35mm f0.95 Argus lens out today. I went down the beach and had a little wander around. It's bloody freezing actually, but it performed really well, I think. I haven't actually looked at the photos yet, so they're still on the camera. I'll take them out now. Have a look in a second. Two things I noticed. One, it's all metal construction, so in the freezing cold weather with no gloves on, it was freezing. But the other issue as well was you've got the aperture ring here. But what they've done is they've just put the knurling bit, you know, the grippy bit, in, I don't know, maybe 1 inch increments, and then it's smooth after that. So when you've got cold hands, it became quite difficult to turn it. I was like, oh, slipping. To actually get it to move. So if you're watching Laowa, maybe do a full knurled ring next time. So it's a bit like this, you know, it's all the same all over. That's the only downside I thought of the lens, really. Oh, and I finally got the lens hood does come off. He said it's freezing cold. That's why, probably. There you go. So it does come off. It's a 72mm thread for the filter, which I've actually got. I've actually got some 72mm filters, so I should be able to get an ND filter on here and try it out and stuff like that at some point as well. But I'm going to go now and have a look at some of the photos that I've taken, and you can see what's what. You can see the aperture working there actually. Look. f16 right open to f0.95. So yeah, so far so good. The only other thing I had today, which kind of ruined the day, which actually became a bit of an adventure in the long run, took me 6 hours to get home because the car decided to have a bit of a malfunction. So ended up sitting around waiting for recovery to turn up for a few hours, and then by the time we got the car on the back of the lorry, which is obviously difficult on a low car, that caused loads of drama. So that's now down at the garage being looked at. Hopefully nothing too major. I kind of know what it is anyway, so it's nothing too crazy. But yeah, it's coil packs. So 4 new coil packs, 10 years old, not done too bad considering the original ones. So yeah, hopefully I get that back soon. So that kind of cut my day photographing stuff a bit short. I did wander around the village I was in while with the camera a little bit and snapped a few shots. So there will be a few pictures in the video that you'll see. So anyway, I'm going to go over and have a look at these now and offload them. Have a look, see what they look like, see how sharp the images are, see if there's any issues with the image quality, how sharp things are, the depth of field, because the depth of field is so shallow, it actually can end up giving you some either bad pictures or kind of really interesting ones. So depending on how they turned out, I don't know. Utilising the HDMI recorder as well, you should be able to see me doing some stuff. So and working the shots as best I could. So yeah, I've got a bit of windburn because it was so cold and windy down the beach today. I basically got it just yeah, give me a bit of a red face. So anyway, let's have a look at the pictures. Let's say look through the video. I'll voice over on the photos and we'll talk about them a little bit. Don't forget to click the subscribe button, little notification bell as well, and hope the pictures are interesting. And if anybody's looking at this lens, it was really nice actually. It took me back. It's almost like using an old film camera again, but in digital form. That's how I could kind of make myself feel. It's just interesting and it's quite fun. £900. Yes, it's worth it because that's the only one out there really that's available. So you're kind of paying for that exclusivity, I suppose. And 35mm I actually prefer compared to 50. I know there's a 50mm one out there as well somewhere, but I like 35 just because it's a wide-angled lens as well, and yeah, it's quite interesting. So anyway, let's get on with the photos. So I've got my HDMI recorder plugged into the camera, which works really well. So first thing I set up on the camera was my peaking level. I actually normally have it in mid, which I left. I did try it on high, but it was a bit too aggressive, so I put it back to mid. The other thing you need to do, especially using these full manual lenses with nothing attached to them, is manually set your stabilization. And once I've found it through the menus, it's you just adjust it to the focal length of the lens. So in this situation, there you go, steady shot settings, it is 35mm, not 8mm. So you can lock that in place, so when you put that lens on, or a lens on, that's got no connection to the camera at all, you can literally set it manually, which is really helpful because it does give you a bit of stabilization. This is a bit of video. I'll just try it out really. It works quite well. Utilising in 4K with clear image zoom as well. And I've put a custom button, my middle button in the centre, or the centre button in the wheel, so I can literally click that and then scroll the wheel and it zooms in and out up to 2 times, which is really helpful for just having a little bit of extra view. So just watching the trucks line back up and the bulldozer do its thing. It's pretty cool actually. Down on pet level in East Sussex, they literally just constantly moving the stones back after the sea moves them along the beach there. So you can see the clear image zoom working. So on sensor zooming basically. Really handy in some situations. And that's where, if you have a look at my moon video with the A7R4, I was at 800mm with the 2 times on the 100 to 400, and then I zoomed in again to get really quite close to the moon, which worked quite well. So yeah, as you can see here, we've got no f-stop adjustments, so can't really tell you what aperture I was in, but unless I kind of look at the photos and make a educated guess. But I kind of hovered around f8 or f0.95. I didn't really do anything in between very much because I wanted to try the extremes into kind of general use for landscape and stuff like that. So it's quite interesting that, you know, how it worked. Lens itself is actually really nicely made. Like I say, it's metal build, so it could have done with a little bit of rubber around the zoom. Not the zoom, sorry, the focus ring, and also the aperture ring could have done with a rubber coating. But you know, is what it is and what it is. So you know, still lovely to use, and like I say, it gave it a quirky feel, and it kind of took me back 30 years to more of a traditional basic photography back in the old days of film and manual lenses. Just really nice feel to them, and because it's not perfect either, chromatic aberrations, as in a little bit of colour fringing, if you want to call it that, around some things in certain lighting conditions, is very noticeable. But obviously in Photoshop you can sort that out very, very easily, and I'll show you that shortly through the photos. It is pretty sharp for what it is. I mean, we're obviously on a 61 megapixel sensor, so I'll take a few pictures of this thing here. It's got a little bit of a fishing net wrapped around it, and shot at f8 first of all. Do the old manual. I basically set a custom button up on my camera for basically manual zoom in for focusing. So basically I can zoom in and actually see what's in focus very easily without relying on peaking too much. But there you go. So then take a picture. Pretty much okay. So that worked quite nicely. Yeah, I mean it's not that great, but as you can see it's relatively sharp, cropped in to 200% I think it is. So yeah, obviously depth of field is very shallow even at f8, that close, because you can focus 50 centimeters away. And then wide open at f0.95 now, which, you know, obviously is going to cause a much shallower depth of field, as you can see here. But then it also, because there's so much sort of string and bits and pieces there, it just made it look a bit iffy. So not ideal at shooting that f-stop there. You can see the fringing around the top of the, there you go, you can see it now. My HDMI recorder going a bit wonky there. That's because I tugged the cable by accident. But in black and white, I think it looks a really nice. It makes it look completely different to a modern lens. You know, a modern autofocus lens. I think it's a really nice look. Very old-fashioned kind of photography look with the into black and white. Gives you that kind of feel anyway. Which, you know, it's what it is. So for the artistic style of photography, I think it's a really good lens for that side of thing. But as you can see there, look, the purple and the greens there pulling out, but the sun is shining straight in, quite strong and low. But yeah, so shooting wide open, you are going to get that issue. But down to f8, it's not really a problem. And it actually gives some really pleasing images. You can see it's pretty sharp. If you look left on the post there, where I focused, that's the actual shot. You know, it's pretty nice. It opens your eyes to a different style of photography, that's for sure. Slows you down, makes you think about things a little bit more. That's shot at f8, quite close. So I was quite close to that piece of wood there. Then I stood back and went 0.95. So basically stand back a bit to give the depth on my subject, but then obviously the blur in the background. That shot there I quite like as well. Very, very simple to use, but this is where the chromatic aberrations was an issue. So I'm miles away actually taking this, but as you can see around the bulldozer there, and then I've corrected it in Photoshop, so it's not too bad. But then you actually see the real whole full image. It's heavily cropped in, so you know, it's like I say, it's not perfect, but as a lot of other people have said out there who've used this lens, you know, shooting in black and white and things like that is a real advantage to this lens to give you that sort of look that is quite nice to have. So, but yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I'm an R about keeping it. That's at f0.5. The first image just before was f8, so you can see the depth of field is very shallow in the distance. This I was quite pleased with actually. The bird up in the tree there, that's the full image. Not too bad considering. That's at f0.95 as well. So yeah, it's a very specialist lens, should we say, with a quirky sort of look to it. I don't know. It's interesting. And then the night before, when I first got it, I just did a couple of handheld shots out of the window of the stars and everything at f0.95, and it works really nicely actually for stars. Actually, more stars I'd ever seen. It was showing up. So I'm going to do some more low light stuff before I decide to send it back or not for a refund. I've got 45 days because obviously it's Christmas time, so I've got a bit of time to play with it. But there's a few real world shots anyway. See what you think. Leave some comments below. Well, I think we have to remember that sharpness, super sharpness, isn't everything. You know, the fact that that lens gives a really unique look to the images. Yes, we get the chromatic aberration, but other than that, it's actually quite a good lens. Obviously, zero weather seal or anything like that. So, you know, obviously you wouldn't be using out in heavy rain or anything. But to be honest, you know, you could always put a bag over it, like the old ways. Other than that, I think 900 quid. Like I said before, it's worth it because it's the only one out there, I think, that I've seen anyway. But yeah, it's a bit specialist and it's out of some people's price range, obviously, for you know, just the lens to have in the bag. You know, it's one of those things, isn't it? You know, is it worth getting an f1.2 version where it's got autofocus? Probably, if you don't really want the quirkiness and the sort of the different look it gives, and you want to go a bit more clinical and a bit more modern, I would say, you know, maybe go for a more modern lens in the fact that it's got autofocus and everything. But yeah, I think for the money, I'll say it's a little bit overpriced, but at the same time, it's really, really cool. Really, really fun to use. So I'm going to do some portraiture with it over the next week or so, and also some low light stuff if I can get out and about, and if we get some clear skies, it'd be nice to do some star work with it as well, and then I'll make a decision if I'm going to keep it or not. So yeah, anyway, don't forget to click the subscribe button, little notification bell as well. Let me know what you think below in the comments. Is there any other lenses you think might work better for the money? I don't know. Anyway, I'll see you soon.